Okay, Assemblyman Chow, and
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Senators. This afternoon, I'd like to present AB 1443 for your consideration. AB 1443 establishes in the Office of the Secretary of State a committee of appointed specialists to advise state and local election officials on best practices to address language accessibility needs of the voters. Specifically, the bill requires the Office of the Secretary of State to establish a Language Accessibility Advisory Committee of no less than 15 members, consisting of SOS representatives, people with demonstrated experience in Voting Rights Act language accessibility, or be a county elections official. As stated in the committee analysis, 28 of California's 58 counties, which is 48.3%, are required to provide voting materials in at least one language other than English. All told, millions of California voters receive materials in a variety of required primary languages such as Spanish, Chinese, Hindu, Japanese, Korean, Tagalog, Thai, and Vietnamese. Language accessible elections materials may include registration forms, voting notices, voting instructions, ballots, sample ballots, polling place notices, and also voter information pamphlets. AB 1443 will help make related election laws more workable by allowing the Secretary of State to meet formally with experts in the field of elections and also language accessibility and consider their proposals for enhancing language-related voter assistance and outreach. I have here today joining me Mr. James Schwab, who is the Legislative Director for the California Secretary of State.
go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. James Schwab on behalf of Secretary of State Alex Padilla. The Secretary is pleased to sponsor AB 1443, which would establish the Language Accessibility Advisory Committee within our office. This is part of Secretary Padilla's ongoing efforts to improve the office and to ensure that communities that are often left out of the electoral process have a clear bridge to our office to make sure they are included. California is one of the most diverse states in the nation, which is reflected in the number of languages spoken by our citizens. For example, in Los Angeles Unified School District alone, 92 different languages are spoken by students and parents. Earlier this year, the Greenlighting Institute released a survey of registered voters with limited English. The survey found that limited English voters generally have less access to information about candidates and ballot issues, can be unaware of their right to language assistance or translated materials, and responded that translated election materials can often be confusing. AB 1443 and the committee established would advise the Secretary on best practices. They would review translated materials and provide important perspectives from California's language minority communities. On behalf of Secretary of State Padilla, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Are there other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, and for the rest of the committee, I'm Trudy Schaefer, representing the League of Women Voters of California. We're very pleased that with this proposal to put this important committee into statute. It will make possible some important work that will keep elections officials and the Secretary of State apprised of trends in the needs for various language assistance and accessibility, and it will help create the best translations possible of the various election materials and election materials, notices, and the various assistance that will be needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill Levine, Sacramento County Registrar of Voters, representing the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. We're in support of this bill also to help make our non-English speaking, citizens able to vote with as much information and translate it as correctly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Susie Costa with the Advancement Project. We're in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any witnesses in opposition? Assemblyman, would you like to close?
Absolutely. I respectfully ask for your aye vote in support. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is due pass to appropriations. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Allen? Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Hancock? Hertzberg? Liu?
We're going to hold the roll open. Thank you very much. Assemblymember Mullen, would you like to present AB 44?
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for your very able chairing. I have not gotten any complaints yet, so.
Well, I just want to point out I'm a co-author on this bill, so I'd like to vote before I have to leave for judiciary.
Okay, I gotcha. We'll make sure to keep this as slow as possible. Assemblymember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senators, co-authors, appreciate it very much. Here to present AB 44, the 2014 primary election, where the controller's race was decided by just 481 votes, exposed deep flaws in our current election recount system. The sergeants are distributing a short sample of some of the media coverage that this issue saw last year, which highlight the problems with our current recount structure. Throughout that recount, in the primary, we learned firsthand that our current elections recount system is a pay-to-play endeavor, even in the closest races, and it allows candidates to cherry-pick the counties they want to recount. If they, make up the vote difference in these counties, then the entire election outcome could be overturned. In response, their opponent can do the same in an effort to recover the lost votes. This back and forth could continue with no end in sight or until a candidate runs out of money. Clearly, this system is fundamentally flawed. In statewide elections where millions of ballots are cast, the state should be responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the vote, not a candidate or a voter. Above all, our system of governance demands that the election process is fair and transparent for all voters and candidates, which is exactly what AB 44 does. In extremely close elections, which are a real rarity, the state will fund a full hand recount of all ballots cast while also re-examining any rejected ballots. In addition, AB 44 makes other important changes to California's recount law while also laying the necessary groundwork for the use of sampling methods and other modern approaches to verify elections outcomes in the future. Here with me to testify in support is Jill Levine, who is representing the California Association of Clerks and Elections Officials. I just wanted to note I've worked very closely with Dean Logan, the registrar in Los Angeles, as well as Orange County Registrar Neil Kelly, to make the recount bill feasible for local elections officials. She will present their perspective as well. So we'll start with Jill.
Thank you very much. Jill Levine, Registrar of Voters for Sacramento County, representing California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. And yes, we worked very closely with Kevin Mullen in order to get this bill passed, or to get this bill to this point, and very receptive to our concerns and our needs. And so we support this bill because it brings to the election official a consistent procedure for being able to recount statewide, and that consistency is very necessary. So we appreciate the work that has been done and urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Other witnesses?
Yes, Paula Lee on behalf of Fair Vote, the Center for Voting and Democracy. Fair Vote's a national nonpartisan organization that works to promote fair, functional, and representative democracy for voters. We have a history of working with people from across the political spectrum for over 20 years, and we advocate for electoral structures and reforms that provide better representation for all. We support AB 44 because Fair Vote's done extensive research analysis on statewide recounts across the whole country, and we've determined that many states should alter their recount laws in multiple ways in order to be more efficient and effective, including California. We support the provisions in Mullen's bill that modernize the recount law. We know that accuracy in elections is vital, and this particular one has a trigger that is low. We also think that we could improve this bill with a provision to allow candidates or parties or individuals, taxpayers in statewide races to pay for an initial accelerated count. And This provision is really important in presidential elections because under the current schedule, California simply could not resolve a close statewide race for allocating its electoral votes in a timely way in a presidential year. So we propose that each county be required to show how it could accelerate its count, how much that would cost, and
Explain the mechanism a little bit.
well, if any individual, the candidate could pay for an accelerated recount themselves, not the state. In the event it's an election year and it's holding up the count for our electoral votes. That's why we just suggest that could be added as a provision. Did you consider that?
I would, Mr. Chair, need to look a little more specifically at that issue. I am interested in this question around the timeline in presidential contests as related to our Constitution and the meeting of the Electoral College. That is sort of an issue that is out there, and I will certainly look at that issue. The primary thrust of this is statewide elections. That has been our focus. And that was certainly the initial impetus of the bill was the controller's race. So we're focusing primarily on statewide races, but we do have language in there regarding the presidential contest.
I guess my core question, and I know we've got witnesses, but let's just ask it right now, is, given the costs associated and the likelihood that a recount is going to produce the same result? I mean, what is different about the initial count with all the provisionals and everything getting properly counted from a recount? And are we simply just making ourselves feel better at quite an expensive cost by doing this?
What I'm going to do, Mr. Chair, is turn this over to Fair Vote. We have worked extensively on trying to figure out the appropriate margin here. The margin is 1,000 votes or 0.015%. The specific language was, if you'll bear with me, Mr. Chair, less than or equal to the lesser. Less than or equal to the lesser of 1,000 votes or 0.015%. And we've keyed in on that based on the size of California, the amount of votes that are cast in a primary and a general, and something that we call margin shift, which is a potential shift in outcomes. And what I'm going to do is allow Fair Vote to talk about that concept of margin shift. And this standard, I just want to remind everybody, with the exception of is it Texas that allows for a recount in a tie vote? This is the lowest threshold trigger in the United States. So this would be an exceptionally rare event, and we have an exceedingly low threshold there. But I'll let Fair Vote explain the numbers just a bit in a bit more detail.
Yeah, Fair Vote thinks the numbers are very low, and when their research shows that of all statewide recounts that have occurred since 2000, full statewide recounts are rarely necessary, as the average change in the victory of margin is less than 0.03%. And that number becomes even smaller as the electorate becomes bigger. So it would be rare. And I think you included risk limiting audits in your bill.
Well, let me ask you, Jill. I mean, you've conducted recounts. What is this just a matter of reading the same article twice? I mean, you're going to just come up with the same results?
I have not had a recount that changed the outcome of the election. I have had it, where they may change a vote or two here or there, but not the outcome of the actual contest.
So why do we need this?
what we're looking for, why we're supporting the bill, is that it now becomes a consistent from county to county. For right before this, each county would kind of hodgepodge it together, and we needed something statewide consistent that gave us this direction. So that's why we're supporting the bill.
Do you think, I mean, given all of the financial constraints and challenges that we've discussed with regards to the election system, that this is a good expenditure of state money?
That, good. And I'll answer that question because it's the reassurance to the candidate and to the public that we've done our work correctly. And so that, how much, I don't know how to put a price tag on that, because when it comes out this close, people are saying, okay, what happened here? And if we can show them that this is how we do it and they're willing to watch it, then that reassurance goes a long ways with the trust factor.
Okay, I think there are witnesses in support. Yeah, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Soper. I am co-chair of the Voting Rights Task Force, author of a website called countedascast.org, and a senior software consultant. I have a few comments. One, I looked at a website called CEIMN.org, which had a list of recount regulations across various states. The lowest trigger that I could find was Oregon at 0.2%, which is 13 times larger than the 0.1015%. Michigan has a trigger of 4,000 votes, which has not been used in 40 years. When I talked to or communicated with people who are specialists in statistics in this area, they were astounded at the tiny, tiny number of 0.015%. They said it was way too low. I will also mention that the Fair Vote research, which was quite good, assumes, however, that there's no systematic fraud or error. It makes that assumption, but that's part of the reason we need a recount, because there might be systematic fraud and error. Indeed, I have been reading a book called Code Red, talking about a redshift, which is specific fraud. I'm not sure if the book is entirely correct, but it raises enough points that we need to check, or as we do in software engineering, do a quality check every once in a while. And that's what this is a check that the system's actually working. We've worked very hard in California, across the country, to get paper ballots, to be voting on paper ballots, and most of the state does that, which is very good. Now we need to get them counted. And this is one of the ways that we can do that, and we really need to get that done. And one other point also almost more important for this bill, is the setting of guidelines for recounts, for the cost of recounts that the counties are charged. The Assembly elections analyst was cited as saying LA is charging $5,000 per day. Orange County is $600. I've talked to people who've paid for recounts. They said, yeah, it's all over the board. It's ridiculous. And I'm very glad to see something being put in place to get this into some kind of rational order. So the Voting Rights Task Force has endorsed this bill. I endorse it, and I hope that we really work to get these paper ballots counted. That's what they're there for.
Let me just ask you a question. You bring up fraud. How would this solve the fraud problem if you're just counting the same fraudulent ballots over again?
You're counting them in a different way. Normally, they're counted by scanner. Now you're going to count them by hand. If the scanner's rigged or the tabulator's rigged, then you're counting them by hand. You're counting them a different way. This is what a bank does. When they're counting money, they count them twice. And they do it more thoroughly than what we do for our elections. So I'm very glad to see this being proposed.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next gentleman.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Tam. I thank you for giving me a minute to speak. I'm also representing the Voting Rights Task Force, but also the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, which endorsed AB 44, and I urge you to pass this. I think it is also needed to end the cherry picking back and forth for possible recounts from one candidate to the other. This, you know, according to the current laws, this could go on for months and months and months back and forth. Also, I would greatly appreciate it if we could raise the threshold a bit. I also think it is much too low. Thank you very much. But I do support the bill, and I hope you will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there any testimony in opposition to the bill? Okay, so the matters before the committee, do we have questions from committee members? Mr. Vice Chair, we know you're a big supporter.
I don't at this time, other than just to mention how handsome the author looks today as a co-author.
Great. You look great as well, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, so the bill's been moved.
Not co-author with your bill.
Yeah. I just, you know, I guess I'm sympathetic to the this piecemeal issue that we have. It makes the system look like it's gameable because you go to one committee, one county, the other. That's really the only reason why I support this bill. I ultimately am skeptical about how much we're going to learn from this, and it's going to potentially be at a high cost. I ultimately don't think that it's going to happen very often, very, very infrequent. But I do agree that the cherry picking approach does look a little seedy and unseemly, and I think does reduce confidence in the process. And that combined with the very low likelihood of its application, I think, you know, are why I'm going to support it. But I just want to point out for some of the comments that were made that there is a 1% audit system that we currently have that is manually done. And if there's any demonstration or fraud or any kind of concern that the folks running the elections at the state and the county levels immediately go in and check it out. And that's done statewide. So I think, you know, those kinds of things that are important, maybe we ought to expand that process a little bit. But with that, I will support the bill. Would you like to close, Ms. Schiller?
Mr. Chair, I just appreciate your thoughtful consideration. You know, this is an issue that we've been working quite literally since the recount in the controller's race was initiated, and have been doing extensive research on this, and this bill has been refined and refined. And we believe this will be a very, very rare occurrence. Fiscal committee is going to deal with the cost issues, but we're looking at some contingency kinds of things, because that's really what this is, as opposed to a pot of money that is sort of sitting there.
Right.
It is such a rare occurrence. I mean, this really was a historic situation. And in that controller's race, and I know I don't want to belabor this point, but there were a handful of votes that Mr. Perez picked up. I'm of the opinion that we will never know the actual outcome of that primary, because it was truncated and it was operating on our existing private cherry pick pay-to-play structure. Yeah. But so when we talk about cost, I would just sort of offer, you know, at what price is our democracy? Yeah. At what price do you put on public confidence that election outcomes are accurate? So this is a very narrow, fail-safe structure where the public has an interest in ensuring outcomes in these exceptionally close matters.
That point's well taken, and certainly as someone who lived through the madness of the 2000 recount in Florida and just seeing the county by county different systems, I mean, there's certainly value to having a system in place beforehand that doesn't look gameable, that's steady, that's clear, that's logical, that everyone can agree to. So I commend you for your longstanding work on this issue. So with
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the bill.
Yeah, so it's been moved. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Allen, I. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, I. Hancock? Hertzberg? Lou? Aye. Lou, I.
Thank you. Congratulations. That passes. We'll keep it open for Senator Hertzberg to weigh in if he so chooses. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll next hear from Assembly Member Hernandez. Oh, yeah, so the consent, we had a vote on the consent, but we'll let you add on. Let's have a vote on consent real quick while.
On the
Secretary.
consent calendar, Lou? Lou, aye.
And do you want to do the other votes that the senator missed? Okay.
Do you want to do it?
Let's just do it now.
All right, file item number 4, AB 683 Low, due pass to appropriations. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Anderson? Aye. Hancock? Hertzberg? Lou? Lou, aye. File item 5, AB 1443 Chow, due pass to appropriations. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Hancock? Hertzberg? Lou? Lou, aye. AB 1461 Gonzalez, due pass to transportation and housing. Hancock? Hertzberg? Lou? Lou, aye. That's it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, and I appreciate your patience, Assembly Member. So this is AB 254, Assembly Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Assembly Bill 254 would limit established election dates to June and November of even and odd years by consolidating elections. AB 254 will help avoid standalone or off-cycle local elections. Standalone elections have shown to decrease voter turnout, increase cost per voter, and encourage special interest influence. Over the last 3 decades, multiple national studies have shown election timing is one of the strongest indicators of voter turnout. This includes consistent election dates. Elections that are held off-cycle at times other than June or November have very low voter turnout, and they can give voters the idea that there are elections going on constantly. Consolidating elections have shown benefit up to 54% increased voter participation and a savings up to $50.94 per voter, according to the Greenlining Institute. High voter turnout is integral to the health of our democracy. If voter turnout is low, the candidates elected to office are voted in by a small minority and are accountable only to that electorate. AB 254 will directly address this and help give a voice to more voters. Stable and consistent election times will help build positive voting habits and make elections more accessible to all voters. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Okay, thank you. Do you have witnesses in support? No? Are there witnesses in support? Yes?
Hi, members of the committee, Nicholas Heidorn with California Common Cause and strong support of AB 254. We think this will increase opportunities for consolidation, especially with state elections. As the Assembly member mentioned, research consistently shows that when you have consolidated elections, turnouts increases dramatically. Just want to call attention to the committee to 2 studies in particular. There's a 2013 study where local elections consolidated from odd years to even years with the state election for cities. Turnout increased 25 to 35%. It's even more dramatic when we're talking about school boards. A study looked at school districts moving from odd years to even years, saw a 150% turnout. I recognize this bill doesn't require going to even year elections consolidated with the state, but it's a step in that direction, would offer cities that do have to change their election dates that option. Common Cause is strongly in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Trudy Schaefer for the League of Women Voters of California, and for the reasons you've heard, we also support. Our democratic government requires informed and active participation by citizens, and we believe this kind of consolidation will enhance that participation.
But let me ask you a quick question. How much does this really consolidate? I mean, ultimately, this is just going to, we're talking about odd number years, so we're not actually consolidating with the state elections. All it is going to do is, I'm playing devil's advocate, but this is sort of the state saying, you can't have this election in April, it has to be in November, and sort of mucking up their city council election cycle, for example. So does that really does the odd number year when it's not consolidated with a statewide election make a difference?
I'm speaking as a Northern Californian, and as the analysis points out, the largest number of cities that do not use these dates that are in the bill are in Los Angeles County. But I can say, as a member of an organization that has a smart voter website with information about every single election, and that has local leagues serving every single election with information for the voters, the the impression that we feel people have is that there's always an election going on and that it's confusing, and I think it does retard participation. So yes, as the other witness spoke, it's a step in the right direction, and I think that it's worth taking.
Okay, thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Did we receive letters in opposition? But they're, okay, I gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Gotcha. What I guess my question for you, sir, is the extent to which you really believe. Obviously, we got some concern from some of the cities. What would you say if someone were to say, "Look, we may believe in consolidation in general, but this doesn't consolidate the elections to high turnout elections. All this does is force cities to shuffle around their date within the odd year." And is there any evidence to suggest that will really impact voter turnout?
Yeah, the Greenlining Institute conducted studies that showed consolidation as a benefit, particularly in LA, where we see a plethora of cities that have just a whole bunch of different dates. We're seeing April elections, we're seeing May elections, we're seeing March elections in Los Angeles County. This is just in the odd years, June and November elections. So in many assembly districts and Senate districts, you'll have up to 5 elections scheduled within a district. Just one district in LA, you know. I can say that for my assembly district. I can say the same for the Senate district that my region is represented within the LA County area. So there is a little bit of voter fatigue from the standpoint that the elections are just coming up all the time. And these standalone elections do cost cities more money when they're standalone. So the idea of consolidating, this is what we're proposing, a consolidation. Are we consolidating it to the tightest possible possibility? No. I would be very much in favor to take it to even year elections only, but there we would have a lot of uproar from many of our communities who like the idea of having an election in the odd years. So the flexibility is there. In the odd years, in at least in LA County, a lot of local school board races and city and water district races are occurring in June and November, most of them in November of the odd year. So we'll be doing away with the Aprils and the Marches and the May elections. So there's a tightening. And I think it'll help improve because it'll help set for the odd year a more clear socialization in the voter's mind that we vote in odd years, and that's going to be either June or November, just like the even number of years.
Okay, that does make sense. Have you been in touch with the League of California Cities, the City Clerks Association, about some of their concerns? Historically, and everything that has ever had to do with bringing the creation of council districts and bringing the electoral power closer to low voter turnout areas, everything we've ever done to increase voter turnout, the League of Cities has always opposed. I think it's truth be told, the League of Cities, in terms of their leadership, their board of directors do not reflect the diversity of California. They do not reflect the diversity that's represented in the California State Senate or the California State Assembly. And I say that calmly and respectfully. It's a very conservative body. I consider them an offshoot of the Republican Party. And no knock on partisan politics. It's the reality. I used to be a member of the League of Cities. I was a councilman for 8 years. They are a very conservative voice. And it seems to me that anything that has to do with improving voter turnout seems to be a threat. And they communicate their opposition whenever we're trying to do anything to even have stronger adherence to Voting Rights Act. Okay. What about the city clerks? The city clerks, we've worked with them. I think we've even taken on amendments with them. And I think that they're in a better place today. And that's why we agreed to an implementation date of 2020 on this piece of legislation. Okay. Other questions from the committee? So the item's been moved. And Secretary, please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, I. Anderson? Hancock? Hertzberg?
Aye.
Hertzberg, I. Liu? Liu, I.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So for Senator Hertzberg's sake, will the Secretary please call a roll on the various items that he missed? It's okay, yeah.
Ready? Okay, file item 1, AB 44 Mullen, due pass to appropriations. Chair voting aye. Current vote is 3-0. Hancock, Hertzberg. Hertzberg, aye. That bill is out. File item 2, AB 254, you just voted on. File item 3, AB 363, Steinworth is a consent item. Would you like to add on to the consent?
Hertzberg, aye.
Hertzberg, aye. File item 4, AB 683, Low, due pass to appropriations with the chair voting aye. It's 3-0 at the moment. Hancock, Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. File item 5, AB 1443, Chow, due pass to appropriations with the chair voting aye. Hancock, Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. File item 6, AB 1461, Gonzalez, motion is due pass to transportation and housing with the chair voting aye. Hancock, Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. File item 7, AB 1504, Alejo, motion is due pass with the chair voting aye. Hancock, Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye.
Okay, I think we need to do Senator
254.
Hernandez's. Yeah.
Okay. File item 2, AB 254, Hernandez, motion is due pass to appropriations. Current vote is 3-0. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no.
Okay, so that concludes the votes, as I understand.
Item 3.
Oh,
Item 3 is the consent.
consent?
Oh, excellent.
Did he have a chance to vote on consent?
Yes, you did.
I did.
You did? Okay. Oh, that's right. I do remember that, yes. Well, thank you, Senator. Appreciate your stepping in, too, when I had to go present. I'm going to rush over to the Transportation Committee. Thank you, everybody. We're going to adjourn the meeting.